the Devils, Demons, and Ethel, bring your Bibles up. I was teasing. Devils, Demons, and Dummies. And we covered a lot of interesting things. Over the last few weeks, we've been freeing ourselves up to speak boldly and not have any inhibitions, and people on Sunday morning have been saying strange things, bringing in Ann Landers columns and so forth and so on. And it's very hard to all of a sudden come to grips with superstitious teachings that have been part of our tradition. And I think it's time that mature people, grown people, are prepared to look at the fact that there is no such place as hell. There are no such things as demons. There are no such things as devil. There is no devil. There is no Satan. And all of these things are part of the ancient Eastern way of conveying to people that which is the negative aspect of life. Remember this morning we were talking about that. Carl Jung, Sigmund Freud talked about the shadow, which is simply the negative part of the power upon which we all thrive and survive. But not understanding it and being a product of the dark ages of Europe, religion and Christianity in particular creates an evil person out of something that is absolutely necessary for life. And that is the negative power that flows along with the positive power. In the same way that electricity has a negative and a positive. You've got to have both. The day has a day and it has a night. There's sunshine and there's rain. And so there's God and the devil. It's all the same thing. But Christianity takes a little bit of a lead. The first and only organization to make the existence of the devil a dogma of the church. There's no other religion that is so superstitious, and many of them are superstitious, but there is no other religion that is that superstitious that actually made some quasi-hero out of a non-existent thing. We've made up the existence of a person. And actually we have people now that have satanic, they go out into the woods and they pray to Satan and all that. And what they're actually doing is they're admiring the negative part of themselves. Because if you want to say, what is Satan, what is the devil? It's the negative part of ourselves. What actually is being addressed, and just think about this and think about it carefully. A mysterious force, electromagnetic force, call it that if you want. Anything that scientifically occurred yet could not be explained and was not in the Bible was made by Christianity to appear as of diabolical origin. We can't explain it. It's not in the Bible. It must be the devil. And basically, that's the way these lunatics approached natural science, and it is turned from lunacy into church tradition. And becomes the foundation. Fundamental Christianity is based on lunacy of ignorant, superstitious people out of the Dark Ages. Many of the ancient Catholic faith actually fought about the dogma of the devil and said, hey, we don't believe in a personal Satan. But do you know why they compromised? They said, well, let's go ahead with it, because what's the use of having a pope if there's no devil? What's the use of having a pope if there's no devil? Which is a good question. So we constructed the devil. And I was stuck with it. There's now I want to tell you, listen to this. Father Ventura di Rocca of Rome was, in the Middle Ages, the examiner of the bishops. And this is what he said. He made this statement. Magic, mesmerism, magnetism, somnambulism, which is sleepwalking, spiritism, and hypnotism are only the other names for Satanism. Okay? In other words, here's a statement of a church leader that electromagnetic aspects of the brain and functionings of the mind that the church didn't understand become the devil. And they feel that way to this day. Here's doctors all over the world telling people to get into meditation. Hospitals are opening up holistic centers and meditational rooms. Doctors are proving that meditation helps people to heal their bodies. And what's the one group that's afraid of it? Christianity. Why? Because of the lunatics that they're following from the Dark Ages who said it must be the devil. Many doctors will hypnotize people and do tremendous things, working them out of conflicts of the mind and even working them out of health. It's an evil thing to born-again fundamentalists. They can't, because they don't understand it. And they're following dictates from a time that history called the Dark Ages. Now, if there are photons, and there are, if there are electromagnetic fields, and there are, if there are invisible scientific particles by the billions, and there are, then Christianity interprets these as the existence of an unseen spiritual universe, people with invisible beings running hither and thither and doing all kinds of weird stuff. No, these are just normal activities of the cosmos. Has nothing to do. But when you have ignorant people who are superstitious and religious, they have to somehow explain to the people sitting in their audience what this stuff is, so they say it's demons and devils. And all they are, electromagnetic fields and photons. Remember we said, we compared photon with God, and people were going to get bumper stickers, honk if you love photon? A photon is a beam of light, a ray of light. A photon is invisible. See, light, you can't see light. Light makes it so that you can see. Okay? When light comes, you can see, but you can't see light. A photon is invisible. A photon moves with the speed of... A photon is intelligent. A photon creates. Huh? A photon is light, it creates, it's invisible, it's intelligent, and there's no time in it. In the realm of a photon, the Big Bang at creation and now are at the same time. There is no difference. So, everything that the photon is, you can say God qualifies for. So anyhow, we have demonstrated that there is an unseen universe with invisible beings. We know that these are electromagnetic fields, these are photons, these are invisible scientific particles, these very things which are very natural scientific particles, Christianity, religion feels are some kind of evil spirits and demonic. Religious scholars worked diligently to record scientific phenomena as miracles wrought by Satan. The same people do the same thing today. If you ever turn this Christian television station on, all the time they'll say, the devil and his legions are coming against us. Sister Doodah got sick. The devil is coming against us. Sister Doodah got sick because she ate the wrong stuff, or she smoked too much, or she drank too much. Whatever she did, she got sick because. But there's no rationalization, see. Scientific phenomena of every kind was written in Christian documents as physical manifestation of the evil one. Now that same lunacy has become the dogma of even the most learned people. Scientists, religious people by the thousands cram into churches every Sunday and see people saying to them about the scientific things that they should know about. These are devils and demons, there's a hell and all of this stuff. And nobody ever moves an inch to say, hey, this is crazy, stop, I don't want to listen to this stuff. I'm not a child. I mean, what's being said here? In other words, if you're superstitious, and if you're religious, and you don't realize electric phenomena in the air, then you'll consider scientific phenomena as demons and devils. This is like when you were a kid. They used to tell me that God was bowling when there was thunder. I really believed it. And I'd say to my mother, tell him to stop. Because I didn't know. I was talking to a child. Somebody was talking to a child, trying to explain what the noise was, and instead of saying these electrical particles, charged particles colliding, they said, was he bowling? And I believed it. And so instead of telling people what the scientific aspects of life are and explaining what goes on in the universe, oh, it's devils and demons, and they believe it by the billions. Believe it. Modern day Christians talk of animal sacrifice and satanic rituals. Oh, this is terrible. And it is. Because it's just cruelty and abuse. But do you ever hear them talking about when the Christians used to burn people at the stake in the name of God? It wasn't animals they were killing, it was human beings. In Christianity's birth, if you disagreed, it wasn't a question of let's sit down and talk about it, they killed you. So they didn't sacrifice animals, they sacrificed real people. Helena Blavatsky says this, speaking of natural phenomena and psychic power. Listen to this. The laws of nature are the same for heathen sorcerer or Christian saint. And a miracle may be produced as well by one as by the other without the slightest intervention of God or the devil. In other words, the laws of nature produce things that astound us. It has nothing to do with God, has nothing to do with the devil. It is actually the laws of nature and things that we are starting to understand. we never understood before. There are people that are jamming churches, and there are people that are turning on and listening to this stuff and listening to documents that were written back in the 1700s, 1600s, and 1500s of ignorant people, and this is the dogmas, this is the very foundation of their beliefs. Instead of, like we said this morning, are we going to listen to Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung and understand what the human mind is about, or listen to Jimmy Swaggart and Oral Roberts? And unfortunately, those are the ones we listen to. But now this is something very interesting. Through the natural phenomena of the mind, this enemy started doing good things. You know what I'm saying to you? I mean, we were quick to burn people at the stake because they were taking part in what we thought were, some kind of mysterious things that seemed to be bad. But people now started having visions and healings, and so they started connecting them to the Virgin Mary and to the saints. And so what happened here was you were having some people suffering, and the church said they were demon-possessed. You were having other people who were benefiting by these same things that were electromagnetic fields, and these were being canonized. So both got it. The devil got the blame, and the deity got the credit. Depended how it came out. Depended how you felt. So if you felt good about it, it was God. If you didn't feel good about it, it had to be the devil. But it was a natural scientific phenomenon. Because the Catholics, they had Mary, they had the saints, and they continued to, be responsible for the divine phenomena. If Catholics said they saw a tear come down a statue, there's a scientific explanation if a tear comes down a statue. How could anybody be so fakakta if a tear comes down a statue and say, what is this? It's Mary crying. It's the statue. There's something leaking in the statue. What? Find out what it is. They had a situation in New York not too long ago where they said that they looked at a window in a tenement and it was a vacant place and they saw Jesus through the shade. 1,000 people came out of the street looking. They were praying. They were lighting candles. A fireman finally went upstairs and he said it was a reflection through this or whatever. There was just a logical explanation, but people are so caught up with trying to explain things and having been taught through the emissaries of the church about the manifestations that, yes, it had to be. Had to be God. Had to be Jesus. It was a reflection on a window shade. That's all it takes. It's interesting how religion can find fault with others, yet practice sorcery for themselves. And I want to show you something, if you have a Bible. For instance, we've been raised in the periods of life that you and I have gone through. You see people in fundamental religion saying homosexual are evil, that homosexuality is evil, not homosexual. Well, let's take that as a premise. Homosexuality is evil. Okay? Where does it come from? Where does it come from? Some say, well, it's genetics or whatever. Let me show you where it comes from. Go to page 609 in those little Bibles you have there. Page 609. And look at the book of Isaiah. Isaiah 45. It's on page 609. So Isaiah 45, and look at verse 7, and I doubt you've ever been to a church where they've ever read this little scripture before. Verse 7, I form the light, this is God talking, and create darkness. I make peace and create evil. I, the Lord, do all these things. So if homosexuality is evil, who created it? According to the book. And then what right do we have to attack people, to put people on guilt and all the rest of the thing, when the Bible is specifically saying, hey, wait a minute here. We're looking at what you people have called evil, which is nothing more than a natural occurrence, but once it gets into the twisted minds of those who would make people toe the line for their own self-advantage, then suddenly a natural phenomena becomes evil. Doesn't make any difference. Nobody's asking you to be a homosexual because you can't be a homosexual unless you are one. Nobody's asking you to agree with it. Nobody's asking that be your lifestyle. But what they are asking you to do is just mind your own business. And use the Bible instead to take the load and the guilt off people's backs, not dump it on people's backs. far as homosexuality is concerned, there's a passage in the Bible that Jesus Christ said talks about eunuchs, which are males who do not have the proper sexual equipment, and Jesus Christ said some are born that way from their mother's womb. Why doesn't the Falwells and all of these people show you that scripture in addition to these other scriptures that they pull out of the Bible? Because it's very important to point fingers, and religion is akin to doing that. Point finger at somebody. Call somebody evil. But here you have a scripture in the Bible, in the book of Isaiah, one of the great prophets of the Bible, saying it is God who creates evil. Certainly God creates evil because God creates power. Power is neutral. When you use that power and you use it to disadvantage, it becomes evil. It's not a question of the power is evil, it's the question of how do you use the power. There was an interesting thing. When we think about how religion can find fault with other people, yet practice sorcery themselves and say, what's fine? Let me show you what I'm talking about. There was a fellow named Gregory of Tours, and he reported that when the clergy wanted to discover the will of God, they would lay the Bible on the altar, this is in the Middle Ages, and then pray for the book to open to a particular page. You know what that is? That's sorcery. Let me spell it for you. You can take it to your S-O-R-C-E-R-Y, sorcery. And you know what? They do it today. There are many that I have run into, quote-unquote, born-again Christians who will look for a message from the Bible and open to a particular page and say, here, that's sorcery. St. Augustine, did you ever hear of St. Augustine? He has a town in Florida. What he said is he thought that when people wanted to find out what was the will of God, they should draw lots. That's sorcery. That's sorcery. Because in other words, what you're saying is there would be a divine influence over this little particular jing-jang that you're doing, and this would be the will of some divine power that would work its way through what you were doing. See? But that wasn't only the activities of some obscure guy living somewhere in Europe. Let me show you something in the Bible. Go to page 888 and the book of Acts. And so why is this important? Why it's important is because you and I have to find a way to look above these things and above these ancient teachings and above these superstitions, because they place you under guilt, they place your children under guilt, and they've placed the whole world under guilt, and it doesn't exist. It comes out of the minds of people who were ignorant of what scientific facts are and who practice things themselves and then point fingers at others. Look at Acts chapter 1. Look at verse 26. They're going to select the apostle to replace Judas. Verse 26, and they gave forth their lots, and the lot fell upon Matthias, and he was numbered with the 11 apostles. That's sorcery. And that's practiced in the Bible. That's the way that the Christian community at that point selected his 12th apostle after the one had died. They drew lots. That's sorcery. Okay? And of course, that's okay when it happens in the Bible, and nobody ever questions anything like that. There was the Earl of Tours, and this is an interesting thing. The Earl of Tours once came against St. Gregory, and he really had a confrontation with him. So Gregory said, I withdrew to my oratory, and he took up the Psalms. And he said, I cast my eyes on the 77th Psalm, because the Earl of Tours was taking a boat trip. And so Gregory said, I looked at the 77th Psalm, and it said, he caused them to go on with confidence while the sea swallowed up their enemies. And accordingly, the Earl went on his boat trip, and the boat sank. But Gregory added, unfortunately, though he sank, his skill in swimming saved him. See, that's sorcery. St. Gregory confessed to practicing sorcery. Now, I'm going to tell you something very interesting. St. Gregory took part in what science calls mind revenge. In other words, you exercise your will on the subject of your wrath, while imagining that you have the hand of God on your side. And you set up vibrations from your mind, and then something can happen to another person. it is practiced all the time in places like Haiti, and they call it voodoo, and you know what? It works. But there's a scientific answer to it. Has nothing to do with devils, has nothing to do with demons, has nothing to do with dead chickens, has to do with the activity and the power of the human mind to set a negative vibration, to impact and to hurt another person. That's why it is so very, very important that people meditate. That your mind is preserved, that your mind is strengthened, because yes, indeed, those who do not meditate, those whose minds are opening to receiving all kinds of stuff like this, can be the subject of an attack by somebody who's playing a mind game like St. Gregory was playing on this guy. And things bad can happen to people. And they can happen because it was directed from the mind of another person. But only when you enter in and open up that right hemisphere and your mind is protected by the power of the vibrations from the right side, you have nothing to worry about something like that. See? So St. Gregory or you and me simply become sorcerers, exercising his magnetic will which reacts on another person. See? Watch. If you do it for evil, it's called sorcery. If you do it for good, it's called prayer. But it's the same power. You get a bunch of people sitting down and meditating for good things to happen, and good things can happen. You can get a bunch of people sitting down and meditate for bad things to happen, and bad things can happen. Because there is an inherent power in the mind. Call it God if you do it for good. Call it evil if you do it for evil. And that, in a nutshell, is the reason for the wars and the hells that have existed on this earth. And that's the reason that religious organizations, denominations split up one to another, wishing each other all kinds of hell. And it comes true. And the Christians are trying to get rid of all the Hindus and all the Buddhists, and the Hindus and the Buddhists are trying to get rid of all the Christians. So the Hindus and the Buddhists are praying that these evil people would go away, and the Christians are praying that these evil, and their vibrations are crashing back and forth, and they're all in a complete self-destruct. Right? It does work. And it is the power of the human mind. And the power of the human mind, when tapped and used for an unhealthy or an ungood reason, call it evil. And you can say, as I said, but you'll sit here on a Tuesday night, or you'll sit here on a Thursday night, and you'll send out vibrations that so-and-so will be healed. You call it prayer. It's still sorcery. Doesn't make any difference. Don't you understand what I'm telling you? There's one power. How do you use it? You think the mind that you can use to heal somebody, you can use the same mind to kill somebody. Yes, you can. It has nothing to do with God, devils, demons. It has nothing to do with any of that stuff. It's the power that is inherent in what goes on within the human mind. And many of you have done a tremendous job. I've done it. You've all done it, in sending out vibrations and created bad vibes in your own house and set the house upside down and had all kinds of people having ill feelings because of the vibrations that you were setting forth intentionally out of your mind. And many times you've come into places where people have set up vibrations intentionally to get you, and you felt it, and you said, man, I got bad vibes, I feel bad vibes. Something's wrong. And you're right. But see, at that time, you don't need to pick up a book written by Jimmy Swaggart or Oral Roberts. You need to pick up the books written by Carl Jung or Sigmund Freud, and you need to get mature and start saying, what in God's name do we have lodged on top of our shoulders here? It's something extremely significant. It's something extremely powerful. How powerful? Jesus Christ called it the kingdom of God. It's within you, and it's here. And so that's what can be done, and that's what has been done. And when this guy Gregory was in meditating on the 77th Psalm, he was specifically trying to get that guy drowned. Church councils came against this kind of thing when Gregory confessed it, but they never came against the sainted sorcerers, St. Gregory and St. Augustine. Their names live on as the saints of the church, yet they practice sorcery. In the same way, when we have wars and all of these things and our churches gather around to pray that our boys come home when the other people are defeated, you're practicing the same kind of sorcery that Gregory practiced. You know what it is? Infantiles playing with the power of the mind who have no idea what it's about. And they call it religion, and it's scary. And if you want to see why the kids are taking drugs and committing suicide, and if you want to see why the bombs have been flying back and forth ever since you've been able enough to read, understand that you got people by the millions practicing sorcery against one another. Right, say. St. Augustine, drawing lots, St. Gregory. How about if you have a hero of the Bible who God chose out of all the rest to be a leader? Couldn't be him. Oh, yes, it could. Let me show you something. Go to page 34. I love to see the heroes fall because they're all tarnished, and if they were real heroes, then, you know, well be it. But when people are sold to you as heroes and they're not, then you should rise up and castigate them and come against what they're told to be. Here's one of the great heroes. In fact, Joan wants to go see the play, Joseph and the Electric Technicolor Dreamcoat. I will go too because of the music of Andrew Lloyd Webber. But the guy was a scuzz. He was a hero, as all the Bible heroes are. I mean, our great hero David, wasn't he a beaut? He wrote the beautiful Psalms. I walk in the valley. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. You know what he did? He was out on his roof one night and he had his binoculars and he saw a girl taking a bath in the house next door. He said, hand me those binoculars, Wazir. Yeah, that's all right. That looked like it'd go in the Bible okay. Her name was Bathsheba. He said, why don't you find out about that thing over there? Say, is her husband, she married? Her husband's in the army. Oh. He's out in the battlefield? Yeah. Why don't you go over and have her come up? We'll have a little tea. So indeed, this hero of the Bible, David, sent for Bathsheba. And they had more than tea. You don't get pregnant from tea, do you? Bathsheba got pregnant. David had a tough time with this because, after all, he's going to write the Bible. What shall I do? So he said, I'm the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. Call her husband back. Tell him, go have it with your wife for a while. You know, then of course the pregnancy is going to be... The guy says, no, I'll never come back. I will stand and I will defend. Okay. Put him in the front lines. David made sure this guy got killed. He was a murderer. He was an adulterer. And he is the beauty and love of the Bible.
Didn't he dance with you?
Yes, he danced with a little jockstrap on. And the lady said, oh, there you are, making a spectacle of yourself in front of all the hussies on this street. I saw you, King David. He said, honey, you ain't seen nothing. That's in the book. As we say, how do I know the Bible? But here's our friend Joseph of the Electric Technicolor Dreamcoat. Let me show you something. You're on page 34? Look at Genesis chapter 39. Okay? Verse 2, and the Lord was with Joseph. And he was a prosperous man. He was in the house of his master, the Egyptian. The point I want you to get is that the Lord was with Joseph. All right? He's a hero. I'll tell you what Joseph did. Joseph saved the 12 tribes of Israel, according to the book. If it wasn't for Joseph, they would not exist, because they were starving, they were about to die, and Joseph saved them. And what he did, they were all of his brothers, and he said, here, I'll give you free passage, and he hid his cup in the package of the youngest child, Benjamin. Is a long mystical story about that. I'll go into that someday with you because it's interesting, the silver cup, but we're not going to go into it now. But I want to show you something. They found the cup. One of the assistants to Joseph found the cup, and look what he says. On page 39, it's 5 pages from where you are, Genesis chapter 44 and verse 5. And look what it said. Is not this it, the cup, in which my Lord drinks, and whereby indeed he divineth? You know what he did? Joseph would take a cup of water, and he would put a colored liquid in the cup, and he would stir, and he would say, "Cup, cup, what's up?" And he would tell fortunes by using that cup. It was like tea leaves and reading. He was divining. He was a sorcerer. He also interpreted dreams. The guy was a fortune teller. He's the hero of the Bible. Do you know that Moses would not allow any high priest to go into the Holy of Holies unless he had the Urim and the Thummim with him? Do you know what the Urim and the Thummim were? Dice. And they would go into the Holy of Holies, and you would go and say, "Should I marry Zelda, O high priest?" He'd say, "Just a minute, I'm going in and consult the Lord." And he'd go and roll snake eyes. He'd come back and say, "No, Zelda." Of course, if you got a 7, I'm telling you the truth. That's exactly what happened. You could not go in unless you had the dice because you were going to roll them in front of the Lord. Whoever told you that? You never went to any other church that told you that. But you know what? It's in the book. You look it up, Urim and Thummim. That's exactly what they were. They were 2 little cubes with little dots on them. They were dice. And the high priest used them to see what the Lord wanted to say. If you got a 7, you're okay. If you got snake eyes, you're not going to make it. And this Joseph here that we're reading about saved the 12 tribes of Israel. So what did Christianity do to wrap this up? They roasted all the lay magicians and canonized the religious ones. That's exactly what they did. If you weren't in the church and you were doing this, you got burned at the stake. If you were in the church and you were doing this, you got canonized. You're a saint. And as our beloved Shakyamuni Buddha would say, such is the nature of things. Yes, sir?
Didn't they make a lot of money with candles, like lighting candles for your wishes, like 56 grandmother, a lot of churches?
Did they make a lot of money? They make a...
Pay for the light.
Yeah, they do. They make a lot of money right now. You can light a red candle for $1, a blue candle for $5, a gold candle for $10, and...
Pray over it and slowly you get
That's right.
healing for...
That's right.
The candle that comes to it.
That's exactly
If
right.
you're in a house, you get arrested for...
Yeah, you would get arrested for operating something. But I mean, you see, the point is, and it's in all religions, the point is that, and the only reason I'm showing this to you today is to show you the authority of the Bible, that the reason it's so important for you then to start to turn away from all of this. We were talking at lunch today, and I said, don't join any church, don't join any religion, don't follow any group. I operate totally isolated by yourself, not to be like anyone else, because if you follow your own pathway, nobody can accuse you of, or fill you full of guilt or fear, because you chart your own course. And what has happened, and what is the prime cause of all of the problems in the world, is that each individual has let go of the steering wheel of their own ship, and that steering wheel has been put into the hands of a stranger. Oh, he sang beautiful hymns, and he had prayer books, and he dressed in vestments, and he had big buildings with spirals and all of that, and we trusted him with the steering wheel of our ship. Now the point is to push him out of the way. Stop. Stop. Push him out of the way.
I wasn't doing my butt.
You were zipping.
I said my
And the point is to take the steering wheel back from the ones that have taken it from you. And to take zippers out of the hands of women. Get up and show the people what you're doing. Get up and show everybody. Get up and show everybody.
What? I didn't think
Because this, the people are on television.
you were zipping.
When she,
It's a sin to zip.
when she says that, you know, I can tell when I'm done,
You're
because
done.
this is what she does. So she didn't, she said, oh, it wasn't me. I wasn't doing that. It wasn't my Bible. It was just my pocketbook. You should be ashamed.
Wrong to zip.
Okay. So anyhow, that's a little bit of sorcery that she does. But anyhow, as we've covered it today, is just don't take this stuff, this religious stuff, that seriously, all right? Take yourself seriously. Find the truth, and the truth is within you. And Jesus Christ said that if you know the truth will set you free. But find it out within yourself. You're never going to find it out within... You know, what we showed this morning, which is very, very important, and I'd like, there's some people here that weren't here this morning, and just for a minute, it only takes a minute, I'd like you to see it. I know where the one verse is. Maybe if somebody can remind me. There was a verse in the Bible that says that whosoever opens the womb first, the firstborn, shall be holy unto the Lord. Okay, it was in the book of Exodus, and I didn't bring my...
I'll tell you where it was after unzip.
You can. We'll unzip and just. I want you to just take a look at this. Exodus 13, verse 2. Can you find that?
Page 58.
Oh, okay, go to page 58, because I want you to see this. I want you to see how the Bible was tampered with, and do you know why it was tampered with? It was tampered with to affect a social condition that meant women should be degraded. Okay, and watch this. Okay, now if you read in Exodus, what's it, Exodus? Exodus 13, verse 2. Look what it says there. Okay, it says, sanctify unto me all the firstborn. Do you see that? Whatsoever opens the womb among the children. All the firstborn. In other words, all the firstborn are holy. Now that's fine. But there was a time then when the Bible wanted to change its ways, and women are to be degraded, and women are not as important as men. And so the Bible was tampered with and changed. And if you look at Luke chapter 2, verse 23, what page is that on? Page 832. Look at how it was changed. Okay? And it was changed for a specific purpose of degrading women and making a social point. So nobody can ever sit there and tell you again that the Bible was not tampered with, because you can see it. Luke chapter 2, verse 23. As it is written in the law of the Lord. Now you just looked at the law of the Lord and said, whatever opens the womb. As it was written in the law of the Lord, every male that opens the womb shall be called holy. Now that's a very interesting thing, and those are the things that, I like to say. And there's nobody that can come against the fact that that's exactly what's in the Bible. That scripture, every male was changed and tampered with because women had to be put down. Okay? And here you see it. I mean, it's proof. And you won't get this crowd up here to ever admit any such thing as that. And yet, that's exactly what happened. And so you want to stay away from taking the Bible literally and joining up with groups or organizations or Bible studies or any of that stuff. You've got to be totally consumed in understanding these things within yourself. And through meditation, you begin to understand them. You begin to understand the symbolic and the mystical meanings of these things. And then you will be set free. But as long as you're part of the mob or the crowd that runs at the beck and call of some priest or pastor or minister, you'll continue in a world that has been in a self-destruct mode for 2,000 or 6,000 years. Thank you very much. Yes?
What you're saying then...
Wait a minute. Nobody can hear you. Come on. Stand up.
What you're saying is then that people then have always given their power away to others, okay? Whether it be to a priest or sorcery or to another individual, an organization, instead of realizing that the power is within them.
Yeah, that's right. But like what we talked about last Sunday morning is the very serious part, is that my identity, and your identity was taken away from you when you were born by your parents. You've never known who you really are. You've been frightened of yourself. You've been confused. You've had a life in many instances which has not been happy because you were never allowed to express yourself. Because as soon as you were born, the first thing your parents did was to try to structure you and change you so you would be the way they want you to be. They never stopped to talk and find out who you are and what is it that you were sent here to be. And so what happens then is you had to create a false self. That's what Sigmund Freud said. You created this false self in order to fit in with the system. You became part of the church that you didn't understand and you never believed in the first place. You became part of the system. You go to vote. Half the time you don't even know who the heck these people are or what they do, but you do it because everybody else does it. You're not doing any of these things because you want to. You're doing it to keep peace. Many times you say, well, I go to church to keep peace. My family will get all upset. And so you create a false self. So you find unhappiness. You find you've never been able to fulfill what nature has you here for. And then after a while, you find that the false self now is such a mess that you fall out of favor with your family, you fall out of favor with everyone, and then you fall out of favor with yourself. And then you get to the third point that Sigmund Freud talked about, you get to disown yourself. Your true self was lost by the system. You created a false self, which you can't even stand after a period of time, and now you got to disown that because it doesn't fit in. So then you've got to come back, and you come back in an evolution to what you're doing with the people come in here. People come in here for one purpose, to try to find out their true self. Yes?
I'm just thinking a little different. I'm still on top, on what you're talking about. But society changes and evolves also, is what you're saying also. 10 years ago, let's say 20 years ago, society was different than today. Today, the new age, everybody thinks that way. Uranus or whatever. The point is the total mind that's on Earth thinks better this way.
Yes.
Right?
Okay.
Not only the individual, but even that.
The collective mass would think better, too.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, the collective. Well, I guess when Carl Jung would say when people begin to individuate and they start to thinking as individuals and become free, then each of them together become a parcel of free people, and then the entire environment changes. And it's like Buddha said that the severe storms that come in the universe are caused by the negative vibrations of people. It is the bad vibes coming out of millions of people who cause atmospheric conditions and cause the storm. Because can you imagine if there is such a thing as a vibration that can change the lives of other people? I mean, people pray, right? People pray for other people to get healed. And many times they do. The vibration. Well, if there is something good that can come out of the vibrations of maybe 50 or 60 people, what can happen to the universe when you get billions of people, negative vibrations pouring out into the universe? And Shakyamuni Buddha says that's why you have them. Because of the... So what you're saying, which is so true, that as you come into this and you start to throw off all of this religion and all of this kind of hell and demon, and you start thinking in harmony with nature, then you begin in a harmony that truly changes things in a positive way. And that's true. That's good. But so then the ethic that we're talking about in this age is to think yourself through and follow nobody. I don't want any members here. We don't have one member that comes to this place. Nobody is a part of it. Nobody is a member of it. There is no members. I don't know what we'd ever do, but there is no members. And it's very important. It's got to stay that way. A person can be free to come here. A person can be free to go. Nobody's going to call anybody that goes. Nobody's going it's so important because you have to respond to that which is within you. And if that which is within you says you go, then I sit here freaking out trying to figure out what I said that got you out of here. But that's the way it is, you see. And there's no guilt on any. But, you know, once you reach that point, then you realize that you're an individual and you have set up within yourself this need for absolute freedom. And then, of course, that's why it's so important when you hear stories like we covered tonight, looking at the lunacy, the absolute lunacy that we have been following as the foundation of our social life. We have been following stuff written by sorcerers and maniacs and have made it and have conditioned it, smoothed it out, put a robe on it, some stained glass on the window and said, it's religion. And this has been our life. And while we've been doing that, the kids have been taking drugs, committing suicide, they've been dropping bombs all over the place, and we've gone into the homes of these, into the buildings of these lunatics, got down and prayed to the God that they created, and cast the things against the devil that they created, and all their magic powers, and cup, what's up, and all of this kind of stuff that they were doing. And we've paid for it by almost bringing the earth to the point of self-destruction. And only thank God, because of the age that we're in now, we're finally listening to what Jesus Christ said, that it's within us. We're listening to a man like Buddha. We're listening to a man like Krishna, or whatever they were, and listening to the voices that are saying, hey, it's within you. Remember, the most important thing is Jesus Christ never said he was God. Jesus Christ never said he could do anything more than you. Jesus Christ said, hey, I can do some hot stuff, yeah, because of what's in me. But I'll tell you something. The things that I do, you can do better than me. He tried to challenge people to do that. But now, we needed a hero. And so they made a hero, they put statues of him, they put him up on a pedestal, and they said, look at him. And I just feel so sorry for the mission that he tried so hard to get across to people. He said, no, I didn't say look at me. I said, look at you. Look at you. I said, I didn't tell you to make a statue. I didn't tell you to make a picture of me on a postcard. Make your own picture. I didn't say the kingdom's within me. I said the kingdom's within you. I didn't say that I was the light. I said you're the light of the world. They wouldn't let him be because they needed a hero. And they've paid for it. So just stay free and be one within yourself. Thank you very much.